Okay, ladies, gentlemen, my fucking Minecraft music isn't working. Oh no, it is. Okay, cool. Ladies, gentlemen, gamers, welcome back. As you can kind of tell from what's on the screen here, I am doing an ADC League of Legends tier list as the premier AD main of the world. The master ADC himself, the virtuoso, if you would. I've decided to impart some of my knowledge onto you lovely people. Now, I don't know why the fuck I'm streaming this, but I am. But regardless, I was very hesitant to do this, and I don't even know how to really do this accurately because we're on patch, like, what even patch is this? This is fucking, what's the current PBE cycle? 11.24, 23? So, with the way patches work in League, it's like, this tier list could very much change depending on, what year it is, what patch it is. So it's kind of hard to do an accurate tier list that lasts through time because, well, it's not hard, it's impossible. You can't do it. So this is mostly just how the champion is in general, how much I like them, how good I think they are, kind of disregarding patches and so on and so forth. Like, just in general, how much I think the champion's good, how much I think they belong, how useful they are. I'm going to be trying to take into account the best they've been and the worst they've been. And I'll kind of put them in the tier list. So, that in mind, we have the stupid dumb tier. The stupid dumb tier is the tier that should never ever be played. If you're playing this, you're stupid and dumb. Then we have the silly tier. This tier is kind of for like what are you doing? Like, I guess you could do it, but it's like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. What are you doing? They're not good, basically. This is like, it's beyond they're not good. This tier, the bottom tier, is like, don't use them, you're trolling. This tier is like, they're bad. They suck. This tier is like, okay, middle ground, middle of the pack, they're whatever. This tier is they're good. This tier is they're amazing. And this tier is you're just smurfing on them. Like, it's just unfair. It's just like, damn, what are you doing? What are you doing? So, again, it's going to be really hard to do this, but I really have nothing else to do before I get my COVID booster, so we're gonna make this tier list. So anyway, let's start, I guess, in alphabetical order. Let's start with the A. So Akshan, the newest quote-unquote ADC, even though he's a mid. And you're going to see as we go through this list, there's more ADs here that are not really ADs. I'm looking at you, Cassiopeia. But anyway, we're going to go through it. So, Akshan came out, was super weak, got buffed a lot, is kind of strong, but not really. His kit is kind of all over the place. I mean, it obviously kind of works for the mid laner, but as Riot says, he's kind of like one of the worst ADs later on. He has a really nice mechanic. I guess that's not as niche as I thought. It definitely does help. And he's fun. Honestly, the biggest part about him is he's fun. His grapple hook is the best part of his kit. His ulti fucking blows wiener. But overall, he kind of gives me like Vayne vibes because he's a combination of everyone else's kit. And he's not too bad. So I was originally going to put him in the silly category. But I'll put him in the silly category. He's silly. It's like, it could work. It definitely could work. It's not that bad. It's fun. But I'm going to look at you if you do this. I'm not going to think you're trolling. I'm just going to look at you. I want to be like, what's wrong with you? So we have that. We have Akshan. So Aphelios. Oh boy. So this is going to be a crazy one. So if you don't know what Aphelios does, he is probably one of the hardest champions to understand in League of Legends. If you know how champions work, you're like, all right, they have these abilities, they work this way, this is how it is. And you're like, okay, I understand that. You throw that out the window, and then you learn Aphelios, and you're like, okay, this is how it works. So it's like, oh my god. Who the fuck is calling my house right now? Oh, it's my mom. Anyway, I'm not picking that up. So anyway, Aphelios. So he was really good. Really, really good when he started. And then he got Omega nerfed over time. And then they kind of buffed him here and there. They changed him. They changed where his power was. But at the end of the day, Aphelios is Aphelios is Aphelios. So I think, personally, from a creativity standpoint, he's one of the most creative ADs in League, hands down. He just has so much going on. Overloaded kit? Absolutely. But in terms of, like, when he was good, he was so fun. Even now, he's not, like, that bad. He's definitely on the weaker side. But again, you can't really... I'm trying not to take patches too much into account here because that changes. So, overall, I'm going to put Aphelios in... I'm really floating around amazing or great right now. Because, like, if he's good, like, he's good. I'm gonna put him in the great tier. Because when he's not good, he kind of feels like he's doing nothing sometimes. Until you get to real game. Like, late game Aphelios is good. But it's not that good. Not anymore, at least. But overall, I put him in great. Just a pretty big barrier to entry. But overall, he's a great AD. Does great damage. Has great team fight depending on the guns. The only thing I don't like about Aphelios is the guns. Eventually, if you get a bad gun combo, it's like you're kind of just waiting like, oh, let me get these guns out of here. I think Riot did a decent enough job at making almost all the guns viable in some way, shape, or form. But I just hate the gravity gun because I'm not a support player. So fuck that shit, get that shit out of here. But overall, good. Not amazing, but good. If this was pre-nerfs, he would have been amazing. But, oh well. Ashe. So Ashe is the, what I like to call him, starter AD along with Sivir. First of all, she's fucking hot. I should probably take thematic into design, or their thematic and design into account too. So maybe I should put Aphelios more. But I might adjust the tier list at the end once I see where everyone's at. But Ashe is pretty hot. You know, she's classic fucking eye candy for the gamer boys. Yeah, I was going to say girls. For the gamer boys. So she has a pretty simple kit, really low barrier to entry. And she's solid overall, you know, she's not bad. The only problem is she takes long to scale, but once Ashe scales up, she's pretty good. I want to put Ashe also in the great territory. Because she's great. You know, she's not bad. I can't play them always. Like, Aphelios and Ashe, you can't play them every game. Because it gets, like, for me, too boring. But I can't really do any AD like that, except for a select few. But I'm going to put Ashe in great. So, Caitlyn. And if you watch me at all, or if you watch my patch notes at all, or even watch me play League, you'll know really quickly how I feel about Caitlyn. I fucking hate Caitlyn. The fact that she has 650 range is like whatever. Like it's really annoying, but it's whatever. The fact that her early and her like her late is like decent is really like whatever. It's her mid game dropping off as hard as it does that really annoys me. It doesn't matter what patch it is, unless you're super fed, but then, you know, it doesn't matter on anyone. Caitlyn is just annoying. They reworked her, and they didn't rework her. They gave her an or whatever update. They updated her fucking model and voices. And it's like, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if it's less annoying, but I just find this whole character annoying. Like, she's stupid, her lore's stupid, she's weak, she's annoying, I hate going against her, I always ban her, she's just a fucking problem. Is she a good AD? Yeah, she's decent, but that's exactly where she's going. She's in the decent tier. She scales decently well. The headshot provides some benefit, but it's like, I just hate Caitlyn. Caitlyn is so ass because of that mid-game, like, dip she has. Like, what other AD has that where they, like, ramp up early, they drop in mid, and then they ramp back up late, but not as hard. She's not a hyper by any means of the stretch, but she's whatever. So now we're up to Cassio. Now, this is supposed to be an ADC tier list, but Cassio is not an ADC. She's an AP mid laner carry mage, in my opinion. But what is she doing in the bot lane? Well, the bot lane is so perverted, because ADs are so shite, that people decided, hey, let's just take mages down here, because mages want to scale too, but they're not as shit as ADs early, and sometimes get on even quicker. So why don't we just bring them in the bot lane? And I don't like that they did that. But I kind of thought of like, okay, should I include this in an ADC tier list? This is a bot lane tier list, let's be realistic. So I will include them, but I have to factor in like, do they actually work? Like, can they carry? An ADC is an all damage carry. So She technically fits the requirement, but it's like she's not really an AD. An AD in my mind is auto attack focused. They could be a spell weaver and like that, you know, like Lucian over here. But overall, this is not something that should happen, and I'll get to the rest that we see on the list later. But Cassio, despite everything, I would put her in the decent category. She's better than Akshan by far. She's better than Caitlyn by far, too. Let me put her above Caitlyn, too. I don't know if these are in any particular order, by the way. Like, I wouldn't say... Actually, I would say Aphelios is better than Ashe. So, yeah. Cassio is the best at the decent tier, just because she's not an AD. Like, if she was an AD, or if this was, like, a mid lane thing, I put her here. I put her, like, right there. But because she's not an AD, but she's going bot lane and just kind of abusing it, she's in the decent tier. She's good, though. If you get behind on Cassio, you do nothing, as with most ADs. But if you get ahead, she's like a really crazy hypercarry. So you know what? I'm actually going to change her. I'm going to put her to great. I'm going to put her to great despite what she is. Because if you just farm on her, and you have a person, you know, hopefully helping you and protecting you as the support, like, Cassio can really just dominate a game and go crazy. Like, she could either, like, keep up with damage of some ADs or just outperform them. It's just she's not an AD and I don't like her. So, that's Cassio. Draven. We're up to the big D, the Tyler 1. What do I think of Draven? I changed my opinion on Draven. When I first started League, I attempted to play Draven. I wanted to main Draven as my first champion. So I bought Draven. I played him for about 3 games. Got very upset that he required so much skill. And then I don't know if I refunded him. I don't think I did. The only character I refunded was Azir, I think, which I then ended up buying later again. But I hated Draven. I never played him for years until recently, where I was like, all right, let me just get every ADC level 7, right? And that includes Draven. And now, being the godly player that I am, I actually got really, really, really good at Draven. And I was actually super, like, having a lot of fun. I actually love the axe mechanic. It's very different from other ADs. And I think, like, obviously his late game isn't as good because you have to manage the axes, but Draven in general is, like, so fucking fun. I love playing Draven. It's just I did it so much trying to get the 7, I'm just burnt out on him. But if you know your support, if you know you have an aggressive laner, like, Draven is fun. He's actually, like, a really, really fun AD. So, aside from if he's good or not, because he's not that good. He's good, but it takes a lot of management and skill to really play him well. And other ADs can just do it, like, either differently or as much, if not more than Draven, with less brain power later. But Draven's good. So, like, overall, I'd put him, honestly, below Cassio. He's, like, the least of the great tier, just because he's not that good, but he's good. So, that's Draven. Ezreal, the prodigy of Piltover? Is he Demacian or Piltover? I don't fucking know. I think he's Piltover. But anyway, Ezreal. I fucking hate Ezreal. I think Ezreal is, like, what the worst ADC would ever look like. He's the safest AD, don't get me wrong. He's really safe. But just gameplay-wise, I mean, he's decently fun, even though most of the time it feels like you're making almost no impact. And he doesn't scale too well. Obviously, it depends on the patch. When Blues was the thing, like, oh my god, goddamn. But, excuse me. But in general, Ezreal, he's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I really dislike Ezreal. I play Ezreal when I want to, like, just fuck around. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think he's silly. I would rather take an Akshan over an Ezreal. The only reason I would ever play an Ezreal is to use the godly skin they gave him with Battle Academia. Or if, like, you just are super scared, you need to be super safe. I don't see any other scenario where I wouldn't pick, like, another AD over Ezreal just to get something better, as in, like, more damage or utility. Like, I feel like every other AD outscales him because he doesn't build crit. He's one of the few, if not only AD, I think, who doesn't build or get crit in any sort of fashion. Aside from, like, maybe 1 or 2 items, but it's like he barely builds any crit. How are you an AD who doesn't build crit? Ignore Cassiopeia. But yeah, I think Ezreal's super silly. He deserves to be down here. He's not a troll pick, but it's like, if we have an Ezreal on my team, I'm assuming he's really going to do nothing. Like, Akshan's a little better, but Akshan's still pretty bad too. So, Heimer. Same thing as Cassio, but worse. So no matter what, he's gonna be below Cassio. It's weird, right? Because if it works correctly, first of all, I haven't even really seen it, and I've played it, and it feels like ass, personally. Because the whole thing of Donger, right? The whole fantasy is you have the dongs, the dong turrets. Now, the problem with that becomes, is the fantasy different from the reality? Kind of, yeah, because you actually can't really just like rely on your dong turrets like that. You have to use them smart, and you have to like play around your missiles and your grenade most of the time. But it's kind of hard and backwards logic to me. It's like, okay, you're going to put him in the bot lane to scale. He doesn't scale like crazy. I mean, he has okay scaling, but not like Cassio. I mean, let's be honest. And with two people in the lane, his dongs are going to get fucked even harder. So honestly, like, it could work in super fringe situations, but again, similar to Ezreal, but worse. It's like, why would you ever pick this? I think it could be good in very, very, very limited scenarios. When, like, the enemy bot lane is bad or your support is godly, but if that's the case, you were going to win no matter what you were playing on this tier list. Like, no matter what you were playing, you were going to win. And I feel like with Heimer, you'll win the least hard. So it's like, if you're playing Heimer bot, I think you're trolling. And honestly, you probably are. So, that's that. And he's not a bot laner, so that factors in too. So, on to Jhin. You know me. You know, after Jinx, man, there's a couple people that I love, that I'd kiss on the mouth. And Jin's one of them. Jhin, to me, is one of the perfectly stylized ADs. He only has one glaring issue, but I'll get to that later. Jhin is perfect in almost every way. He's fun. He's not that hard, but he does have a high skill ceiling with his W and his ulti. His Q has some mechanics you could kind of learn. Well, not, they took one away, but he used to have mechanics you could learn. The E is basically useless, but it's just like, he's not the hardest carry late game, but he's like right below the like hardest of the hardest carries. And again, this isn't purely on like how good they are. That's a part of it. I'm trying to take in literally everything. Thematically and design-wise, he's perfect. Like, I can't think of a better champion. Music, mwah, the best. When they still had logins, Jin's login was one of the best logins. I loved everything about this champion. He has an execute, guaranteed crit, utility. He's fun. He's different. He had one of the most unique mechanics in the game with the 4-shot reload. I think this is before Graves got reworked, or maybe after. I don't remember, but Graves is the only other person who has like a reload mechanic like that, and I just love Jhin. He's great. Obviously, there's patches where he's not so good, but the patches that he's good are even better. It's just amazing. Like, Jhin is just one of the best, and that's why he for sure, no matter what, goes into the smurfing on them tier. Like, easily he goes into the smurfing on them tier. He easily smurfs on people. Like, Jhin, I think, if you play ADC, you have to at least try Jhin. He's not for everyone. I mean, he does have a certain style to him, but this is my tier list, not yours. So, I think Jhin is the top of the top. He's one of the best. He's smurfing on him. And then, you know, coming hot right off the presses right after him is my first and ever main, my first and only ever main in League of Legends, Jinx. After I left Dickhead Draven, we got to Jinx. And I was like, I want someone who just autos. I was coming from Smite, right? And in Smite, the autos mean a lot for ADs. Obviously, the abilities too, but Smite, I liked autoing. I really like the thought of no matter what happens, I can consistently put out damage with the thing everyone can do, and I can like do it fast. Like, the more you auto, the more damage you do, right? And you can always auto. Abilities might go down, but autos are never down, obviously unless you're blinded, but autos are always there. And I like the fact that I can always do damage, and my consistent damage ramps up, and I become like one of the main driving forces to winning the game. I really love that. And I think no one embodies that harder than Jinx. Jinx is one of the people that embodies that so hard. Her whole thing, first of all, she's a hyper, right? She's a hyper carry. She goes crazy. Her thematic and everything is very appealing to a lot of people, which is good. She's like, you know, the crazy fucking blowing up chick. She's wild, hot, petite. So she definitely fits into a certain audience. But gameplay-wise, is really, really good and fun. The Fishbones Rocket, like, switcheroo combo is so good. Like, you can always make an argument for using both. The minigun provides so much attack speed and raw just DPS, it's great. The rocket launcher provides so much range, decent poke, and really good chunk damage sometimes, because it does more regular auto damage. More than regular auto damage, it does 110%. It's so good. Like, Jinx is just so good gameplay-wise, similar to Jhin, but she's just not as expertly crafted as Jhin. She does have a special place in my heart, and I always think if you need, like, a good, decent hard carry, you go Jinx. And Jinx is always one of my, like, flex, like, rest picks. I can always play Jinx and feel confident. Because I just played Jinx enough, and she's just that good in my eyes. There's nothing in her kit that feels useless. Like, everything has its use. The passive, the Q, the W, the E, the ult, it's all great. And there's enough skill expression in there to where you can fuck things up or look really cool doing some shit, too. Like, Jinx is obviously going into Smurfing on him tier. Not quite as good as Jhin, but basically right next to him. I just think Jhin is, like, either the same or worse in gameplay, but he makes up for it from just his design and his thematic. His design and thematic is, again, one of the best in League. Like, he has to stay above Jinx. Jinx is not as, like, crazy as Jin's. Jin's is so good. And Jhin has, like, everything. With the 4, with the gun, with the story. Like, it's so good. I love Jhin. And how he gave Zed and Shen PTSD, like, it's so good. But anyway. Again, coming hot off the presses. Another one of my favorite ADCs, Xayah. So, they always try and do some bullshit, right? I'm surprised Kindred isn't on here, by the way, because I was about to mention this too. They always try and do some bullshit with the ADC class, because we have a lot of ADs, right? We don't have a shortage of them, although we haven't had a new one in a while, but we haven't had a shortage of the ADCs. Now, Xayah is a combination, in my opinion, of an assassin mixed with an AD. Xayah is a really good 1v1er. Now, obviously, there's other ADs in this game that are good at 1v1ing, but Xayah is one of them who's exceptional at 1v1ing. She has so much mixed damage, you can't really itemize against her, because back in the day, you know, again, this depends on the patch, but in certain patches, you can either build AD, oh, okay, AD Xayah was nerfed, let's build full AP. Okay, AP was nerfed, let's build hybrid. Like, because she has magic and physical in her kit, it's great. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for executes and missing health damage. Jinx has an execute, Jhin has an execute slash missing health damage, so does Xayah with her passive. And the fact that it's on her passive is cool. The first time I saw her Q, I, like, fell in love. I love missiles coming out and just targeting people. And it's like a free fire thing too, you don't even have to target it. It's so fucking good. Xayah is great. Now, the only problem she lacks range, and if you get behind, she kind of does nothing, which is kind of the same for Jinx and Jhin, although they have some utility. Xayah has none. So Xayah is just pure damage. Is she fun? Yes. Do I love her? Yes. Is she sexy as hell? Yes. She's the daughter of fucking Cassin. She has a great thematic. She's void. Like, she's so cool. The only problem is, I just think her gameplay is super, super dependent. And, like, the fun you'll have with her is super dependent on, like, if she's strong or not. If she's not strong, she's borderline, like, almost unplayable. Obviously, you could have fun on her, but it's so hard to. Like, it's so hard. It's similar to Aphelios, where when Aphelios is good, he feels really good. But he also has utility, same as Ashe. Xayah feels better. Like, Xayah feels so good to play. You feel like a superhero when you play her. You fucking ult in, do some flashy play. It's like the Lee Sin of ADs, in my opinion. Like, you do so much flashy shit on Xayah. It's so fun. Like, it's so cool, and, like, you feel cool. You feel like Faker when you play this champion. Xayah. That's why they, like, try and target Xayah in, like, competitive play, because she's so crazy. And when she's crazy, but she's not that crazy, and it's really dependent on how much fun you'll have based on the patch and how strong she is. So, overall, I love Xayah. She holds a special place in my heart. If there ever is a legendary for Xayah, I'm going to get super happy. I'm just sad she's not too good right now. But, overall, Xayah is definitely going in the amazing tier. She deserves to be there, no doubt. Like, for sure. Aphelios almost could have made it in here if he wasn't as dependent, but he's not as fun as Xayah. Xayah is super fun. Like, you have the invis, you're going in and out of stealth. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Xayah is just amazing. So, going forward. Kalista. What to even say about this train wreck of a champion? When she came out, she was really fucking good. She's super dependent on the support, which I think is a good thing. It's just we're not in the meta of, like, supports being good. or supports being actual fucking supports, but I could make a whole nother video on that. But overall, she's not too good. They nerfed the shit out of her, as they do with most things that are really strong. The problem with Kalista is she's really hard to balance around, and for the longest time, it was because of her objective control. Like, she guaranteed objectives for the team she was on, and they kind of took that away from her, and then they took away damage, and they took away this and that, and then they made it more reliant on her being with the support, so they actively discouraged, like, her being played in roaming support meta, which is what we're in now, because the support leaves her, and it's like, she's fun, but she's a very non-traditional AD. She's like a mix between a spellcaster, like a caster AD, and a regular AD that autos. Obviously, her autos do damage, but the main killing force behind Kalista is the E. So if you fuck it up and you're just stuck there autoing, obviously there's some people you could just kite to death, but you could kind of do that on almost any AD if you're good. But it's just like, if you fuck up the E on Kalista, you feel like a non-champion. The E is so integral to the kit, and it's just, I don't know. Her late game is okay. I've seen a couple Kalistas actually go crazy, but overall, her theme is okay. It's kind of boring, and just in general, it's like, I think she's just way too hard to balance around to where she's not fun most of the time. And if she gets ahead, she's good, but she's not as good as other late game AD. So overall, I would put her in the silly tier. I'm putting her... See, this is the hard part. Do I put her above or below Ezreal? This is hard. This is really hard. Honestly, I'd rather have a... depends what you want. Like, if you want safety and consistent damage, you take Ezreal. If you want, like, the possibility of doing really good, like, more damage than Ezreal, because I think Kalista will do more damage than Ezreal. You get Kalista. Honestly, I'll put her above. I'll put her above Ezreal, but she's basically right next to him. Like, this does not mean she's better. This could be either or. It's the same thing. Akshan's better than both of them, in my opinion, but Kalista's, like, on the same level as Ezreal, in my opinion, but maybe a little bit lower. I don't know. We'll see. So next up, Karthus. I don't know what the fuck is Karthus doing in the bot lane. I've seen Karthus jungle. When it first came out, I was like, what is... Are people trolling? But no, it was real. It was fucking real. So when I've heard there's Karthus AD, I have never seen this, aside from maybe, and I really have to comb my fucking smooth brain here, maybe once. I've seen ADC Karthus maybe once, and it was terrible. Like, this champion's just meant to die. Do not play this champion bot lane. Yeah, he might scale well, but you should just take him jungle at that point to where he'll have a safer time if he doesn't get invaded. Like, I don't understand why you'd go in bot. Bot is so bad. He's so bad. I don't know. He does decent AoE, but it's like, he's just meant to die. I don't think Karthus lasts in the team fight unless you play super carefully. And again, you could do much better with other characters. Karthus is dumb. And on the bottom list here, on the stupid dumb tier, they're not in any order. They're all dumb. They're all equally dumb. So it doesn't matter. So, moving on. Kog'Maw. I love percent health stuff, whether it's max health, missing health, current health. Current health, to me, is probably like the weakest of all the healths. I love max health or missing health. Current health is kind of whatever. But luckily, Kog'Maw has max health. So, Kog'Maw was known back in the day as a hyper carry. Some even called him the Giga carry. But he's really not that. I mean, he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's very, like, niche. Like, you gotta get to late game. Back in the day, that was what was known. If you get Kog to late, it's like Kale. Your chances of winning just shoot straight up. It's like, whoa. The problem is he's hard, but I really just love Kog's gameplay. Thematic and lore-wise, it's kind of weak. It's like, okay, he just spits at you. He's like a spit champion. But I really hope one day they either give him a good skin, give him an actual passive, or give him a rework. But I'll definitely... Like, Kog'Maw isn't bad. If you have a good team set up for Kog'Maw too, Kog'Maw could go buck wild. Like, Kog'Maw can do really good things. So, I'm actually going to put Kog'Maw... And it's just really hard to do. And if you get behind it, it really feels terrible. And he doesn't have a passive. So, but overall, I'm very biased towards Kog'Maw because he's a hyper carry. And he has range and max health magic damage. So it's like he does a lot of tank shredding. And he has so much range. It's so good. With new lethal, it's so good too. But, again, taking most patches into account, I just love Kog'Maw as like one of or he used to be one of the like hyper late game good carries. So I'm gonna put him here, just because I would play him more than Ashe. But if I was serious, like I'd play him maybe as much, if not less, than Aphelios. I think Aphelios just offers more, even if he gets behind. But Kog'Maw I really do enjoy. I think Kog'Maw's great. Like with a Lulu, it's like, oh, with a Nami, nut. Well, I can't nut. It's not December yet, but 2 days. 2 days. So, moving on. We got Lucian. So, Lucian is kind of, to me, sort of like Draven. He's a very fun AD. I love playing Lucian, because when you do good on Lucian, it feels fun. He's like similar to Kaisa and Draven, right? In my eyes. But the problem is, he really shares this with Draven, is if he falls behind, he's really useless, and he's not that good late. Although they did buff his ult to scale off crit, I still don't think he's that good. He's fun, though. I definitely think he's fun. I'd put him, honestly, on the same tier as Caitlyn, maybe a little above her, just because I'm biased more towards him than her. I actually am really, like, not that good with Caitlyn, because I never play her and I have no practice on her. So, I have way more practice on Lucian, and I feel way more comfortable on Lucian than I do on Caitlyn. But would I put him above Draven? Like, Draven's late game is good, and so is Lucian's. Like, they're nothing to joke at. Honestly, I'm going to switch them. I'm going to put Draven in a lower tier. He's the best of the decent tier. Lucian's probably right below him, although I play Lucian way more. But Lucian's just, like, so low range and doesn't carry that hard. Draven carries harder, but doesn't do it that often. They're both, like, peas in the same pod. I mean, that's basically what I have to say about Lucian. Lucian's fun. He has a great early game, decent mid, okay late. Again, not like hyper carry like Jinx and them, but his late isn't too bad. It's okay. It's okay. So then we have MF. MF is a weird one. She's also a caster AD, right? She's similar to Lucian, where a good decent chunk of her damage comes from her abilities, not just her autos. But different from Lucian is her ulti can carry team fights. So no matter what, she's above Lucian. I think she's fun. I think she's safe because of her move speed. Obviously, she has no escape like Lucian, but the move speed really does help. And overall, I think MF is really good. I mean, you know, thematically and lore-wise, I mean, oh, come on. Like, she's one of the premier eye candies of the bot lane. Let's be real here. We know why MF was made. Sexy pirate lady. Come on, man. It's not December, but come on. So, she's definitely not an amazing tier, no matter what. Like, she's not amazing. I would definitely put her in the great tier above Cassio. The only reason Cassio is not that good, because again, Cassio's damage like really carries her into this tier, but she's just not an AD, and like it's such a weird pick. Like, I don't have enough experience with it or seeing it. It's like, I understand why it could work, because she is a scaling champion. Cassio scales like a fucking truck, but she's not an AD. She deserves to be in mid. So she's probably always going to be the lowest of the great tier, but MF is definitely above her. Ashe, I just think, is more consistent with what she could do, because if you miss the MF ult, that's a good chunk of like your usefulness just out the window, and then you just wasted like the MF pick, kind of. If you land a good ult, though, you carry the team fight, and she would be up here if the ult was more consistent. But because it's not consistent, she's over here. She's great. She's a great AD. I don't think like you're doing bad by picking her, but you really got to land the ultis. If you don't, you could still do good. Like, she does really good auto damage. It's just that's not the majority of why people pick her. If you want good auto damage, play anyone above her. All of these people above her have great auto damage. She has half and half. But yeah, going on from her, we have Samira. Now, when Samira came out, she was way more busted than she is now. She's not as busted now, although she really is annoying to play against just because of Wind Wall, AoE Wind Wall. Even though they nerfed that too. Overall, though, in terms of everything, like, her lore and thematic is cool. I just don't care for it at all. I don't care, like, she's like this badass who like is seeking a thrill. She works for Noxus, but she doesn't really care about them. She cares about herself. She's basically like the female Dante. Like, that's basically what she is. She's female League of Legends Dante from Devil May Cry. Is she fun? Is her gameplay great? Abso-fucking-lutely. Can she really turn around teamfights and carry the fuck out of shit? Abso-fucking-lutely. It's just really hard, and you have to be really careful that the enemy team doesn't have CC, because she's very easily counterable. But I actually think she's one of the funnest champions in the game in the AD role, and if you just want to stomp out and be aggressive, you play her. In my opinion, she's the less mechanically intensive Draven that just does stupid AoE. So honestly, with how much fun I've had and how just overall good she is, I'm putting her in the amazing tier. Like, she's really fun to play. Again, if Aphelios was more consistent, I put him here too. But I'm trying to think, should I put Aphelios in amazing? Like, I really do like Aphelios and Cog, but they're just not that good. Like, the gameplay is holding these two both down. Because they have, like, really good or really bad gameplay. Samira, it's more consistent, but that's just because I'm a good player. But it's like, I'm really having trouble deciding where to put her. Because I love Aphelios and Kog'Maw, but I don't know if I'd put Samira above them. We'll leave it like this for now, but we'll see. So next up is Senna, right? Senna's weird. So Senna came out as a support AD hybrid, and a lot of people didn't really know like what she really was. They're like, oh, is she an ADC? Is she a support? What is she doing? And Riot's like stupid fucking logic was, hey, yeah, you know, we could have her be a fucking ADC and she can lane with Lucian, best of both worlds. And it's like, no. The optimal thing that people figured out was play her with Tom Kensha Tarek and have them take farm. It was some convoluted ass shit. But we're not going to count her as a support, even though that's her main role, and that's, I think, what she deserves to be. Even though she's not a support, she's an ADC support. But, if you play her solely as AD, I think you're actually playing to her weakness. The whole thing about Senna is you need souls. You want souls, you need souls, and the slowest way to gain souls is to CS. So overall, I think going her AD is a mistake. Do I think it's the worst thing in the world? No. But do I think it's trolling? Borderline. It's borderline trolling if you're going Senna AD. It could work, but it's borderline trolling. And she's like the least bit from like a hyper carry. Like her late game, I don't know what it is, but I feel like she just falls off, which is why like it's good that she's in the support role because she doesn't take the slot from an actual damage dealing character. Because if you're relying on her for the late game, you fucking lost. So I think just for that fact, just because like she has no late game like real carry potential aside from maybe utility and decent damage. Like if your team is not there and you're just relying on your support and you're not gonna win. Senna will not win you the game. So I think she's in the stupid dumb tier. Like she's almost reaching silly tier, but if the fact that like she can't do enough damage to carry late really just goes against the whole purpose of an ADC, which is to scale to late and do good. Which is why these people who scale kind of bad are down here in the silly tier. They're not terrible, but they don't scale that well. So anyway, moving on. Seraphine. Kind of similar situation to Senna, honestly. Seraphine came out and Riot was like, yeah, you know, she's a mid laner and a support. And people were like, oh, better Sona. And they never played her mid, and they kept buffing her for mid, which also buffed her support. And they kept playing her support. Now, the main difference between Senna and Seraphine is Seraphine scales like a monster. Late game Seraphine is actually really fucking good. It's sleeper, like how good it is. If you land a good ult on Seraphine and you don't like die to an assassin or something, and if Seraphine stays alive, she's one of the best like enchanters there is, I think. She's one of the best like support fucking caster enchanters there is in the game. Way better than Sona, in my opinion. Her range and just utility in general with that huge teamfight ult is so crazy. Like, she provides so much. She's literally just better Sona. Now, here's where the issue comes in though. Do you pick her in the ADC role? Because, like I said, she scales really well. Her late game scaling is great. It's not enough to carry, but it's enough to almost like be able to carry. But the problem is, you could just do that as support and not take away the carry potential from someone else, like the spot pick. So it's like, why would you take away the spot pick from an actual carry and just do the same exact thing in support, although it's going to take a little longer? Like, why would you pick it in the ADC role? So purely rating her as an AD, I think she would have to go here, like below Ezreal. I could see an argument for it. I could see Seraphine ADC. It's probably the worst thing in the game. Like the worst AD you could have. Because you could do the same thing support. It's not that it's even bad. I'm not even saying it's bad. It's just, it's the same thing as achievable with a better outcome of having an actual AD paired with her. So, I don't understand why you'd go her AD, and honestly, you shouldn't. So it's like, I'm putting her here, but with the huge asterisk of like, she's a really good fucking support. Like, I honestly wholeheartedly believe, like, mid to late game is where Seraphine truly shines. Her early game is like Yuumi. Like, you lose the lane early with Seraphine. But if you could survive that, Seraphine is an animal. But not an AD. So she's not going crazy. I see the argument for Cass AD. I don't see it for Seraphine. Because you do the same shit as support. Cass needs items to, like, scale up. Seraphine doesn't. Because she has so much utility. But anyway. Excuse me. Whew, these tier lists are hard. Excuse me. Moving on to Sivir. Sivir is the worst Ashe, in my opinion. Sivir has way more, well, not way more, but as much, if not slightly more utility than Ashe, but she's super beginner friendly like Ashe. I just think she's even safer because she has the spell shield. She's not great. Her late game isn't anything to really, like, laugh at, though, because there's been patches where she's been crazy. So overall, I'd put her in the decent tier, along with Lucian, probably a little better than Lucian because she's more consistent, and she just provides more to the team. Like, I feel like late game damage, she'll either match Lucian or might do better than him just because she has, like, the Q and the boomerangs that AoE for her. Well, not really AoE, but they, like, bounce to people. So I put her on the same tier as Lucian. It's just I feel she provides more to the team than Lucian. So I'm putting her above Lucian. But she's definitely boring. She's a boring AD that just clears wave, farms, does damage. She's like the most basic beginner-friendly AD. If you ever want to learn AD, you play Sivir. Because you're not going to be a hyper carry, but you're going to do damage that matters, and you're going to help the team no matter what. So I think it's good. I think she's good. She's in decent tier. She's not in great tier. She's in decent tier. Moving on to Swain. Swain is basically copy-paste what I said for Seraphine, but worse. He's not an AD. He shouldn't be an AD. He can't... I mean, he could sort of carry late game if he gets fed. Swain's damage can get really nutty, and he infinite scales technically, but he's not an AD, and you could just do the same thing as support. Again, copy-paste Seraphine, just do it as support. Why play it as AD? So if you play this as AD, I kind of think you're trolling. I think this is the stupid dumb category if it can never be done. Again, this... of, like, Seraphine AD, you can make the argument for it, but, like, I really don't see it. But in very select scenarios, I could see it kind of working. Kind of. This can also work kind of, but it's like... I don't know. I don't know what it is. I do not want to see a Swain AD. I feel like Swain is way more inconsistent than Seraphine with how good he can do. So, he's staying in the stupid dumb tier, don't play Swain. AD at least. Support, you can make an argument. Again, copy-paste Seraphine. Support, maybe he'd be here. Seraphine would be, like, maybe around here. But as ADCs, they're here. And she's lucky she even got there at all. But anyway. Moving on to Tristana, everyone's favorite resetting Yordle jumper. I actually really like Trist. I just don't... Like, I think she's good. It's just I don't vibe with her gameplay at all. These ADs here, I love their gameplay. Trist is objectively good. I really like Trist. I don't think she's hyper carry, but I'm not sure. But I think she's really good. Tristana's really fucking good. And, like, I just don't like the way she plays the game. I just don't like the fact that, like, I have to do a single target thing on the E. And the E is AoE, so, like, it's not single target per se. But, I don't know, I just don't vibe with her gameplay. I don't like it too much. She's great scaling, gains range, gains, you know, great damage, has resets, self-peel with the ult, great damaging ulti for early pressure, great late game. It's like she's everything on paper you'd want from an AD, but she's just not fun. Yo, I know, Jay, like, I know, fuck Cassie, but she's good, bruh. She's a good scaler. But yeah, with Tristana, it's just like, she's on paper really, really good, and she fills out all the checklists for ADCs that are good. It's just I don't find her fun. I do not like her gameplay, and it's just my personal taste of... She's just not for me. I'll play her, I'll have fun with her, but I don't know. It's just something about her kit and the way it works and the way it plays out. I just don't find it that fun. So, I would put her, honestly, just because of the fun factor. Again, everything else is there. It's just a fun factor to me is a really big component. So I'm putting her, because she's a great AD, don't get me wrong. You play her, you could do good. But she's just not as fun as these other people. I would rather play all these other people than Tristana. Although Tristana's good. But that's what I'll say about her, to just not keep it too long. Next up, we have the fucking stink rat. the fucking stinky fucking plague rat of Zaun, Twitch. Twitch almost fulfills one of my fantasies. Before, I said I really like max health, missing health, and current health, you know, is the least of what I like, but I like that too. But one of my really, really like sick fantasies is having tick. I love tick damage. Now Twitch has tick damage, and AP Twitch especially once they buffed it, was a very fun thing to play until they nerfed it. But barring that, AD Twitch is still massively good. I think if you're a good Twitch, you could go very far. It's just very hard to be a good Twitch. It's very hard to do good on Twitch, but if you do good on Twitch, you feel so satisfied, like you ate a fucking Thanksgiving turkey once you have a good team fight with him. Like, you feel like, yeah, I carried that fight. Yeah, I went crazy. It's just really hard to do that. But overall, he almost fills the fantasy of tick fantasy for me, you know, dot damage over time. And he's a really, really good AD late game. It's just if he gets behind, he's fucking, like, done. He's done up. But overall, I would actually put him above Ashe. He's in the great tier. He's almost amazing if he was just better and was more consistent and wasn't as, like, hard to do good with. But he's really good. I think Twitch is really good, really fun. He's just not an AD for beginners. If you don't know how to play AD and you play Twitch, you're just gonna, like... You're just gonna disgrace yourself. Like, you're gonna embarrass yourself and you're gonna look like a fool. Same thing with Kog'Maw, Aphelios, and all these people up here. Like, these are, like, maybe not Jinx, per se, and Jhin. Like, they're kind of beginner-friendly a little bit, but overall, everyone else here above Twitch will kind of, like, just embarrass themselves if you don't know how to play AD. But anyway. That's what I'll say about Twitch. Super fun, super good, just really hard. And you have to really kind of think when you play him. Varus. So Varus, I think, is kind of a weird scenario similar to Graves and Quinn, where I feel like he's slowly but surely being pushed out of the bot lane. He's one of the weirdest ADCs. He does have max health damage, and his kit is like okay. It's a really aggressive kit in my opinion. It's just he's either super weak or like you build lethality, like you don't even build crit. Like he's almost not an AD. I don't know how to really pin it down, except for like I feel like he's getting the Graves Quinn treatment. Like they were ADs, but they were so like fringe and so different from all the other ADs that they could just become like a mid laner or a top laner or something. For Varus, I think the case for him is he could definitely be a mid laner, and they do play mid Varus. And sometimes I think it's actually better than AD, but I think Varus still could have a place in bot lane. It's just he's really weird. Lore-wise and stuff, I don't really care that he's two gay men kissing. Like, I don't mind it. I don't have a problem with gay men kissing, but I don't really care for his lore. Like, it's really whatever. Like, yay, he's gay, cool, love conquered the darken, yeah. But gameplay-wise and lore-wise, I could really care less. He's fun, though. He's definitely, like, once in a while, if you play Varus, you can definitely do good on him. But I'm definitely going to put him in the bottom, maybe above Caitlyn and Lucian, actually, of, like, the AD tier, of the decent tier. I was going to say AD tier. He's definitely, like, mid-pack decent tier. I'd rather play Sivir and maybe Draven, just because Draven's so fun. But, like, Varus definitely has his place. It's just the ulti is kind of very hard to do right. I mean, obviously you could almost for sure, unless you're a bot, pick out one person with it. And Varus does do good. It's just I don't really like him, and he feels like a weird AD. Oh, shit, what the fuck? Oh, that's my alarm. Alright, cool. That's an alarm for something that's happening later, aka the booster shot. But we got an hour for that. We're fine. So we're definitely going to finish the tier list. But yeah, Varus, middle of the pack. I think he's good. I think similar to Caitlyn and Lucian and stuff, like, he does good damage. Possibly even the most out of this whole thing, except maybe barring Draven. Like, his damage could definitely put him into the great tier, but everything else brings him down to the decent tier, because I don't really like everything else about him. His kit's just weird to play with. Not bad, though, but weird. Okay, now we move to Vayne. So, this is a really tough one to kind of, like, map out. Vayne is very similar to Twitch in that she could carry games on her back. Twitch is a hyper carry as well, I would say. It's just you have to have ult up for him to be a hyper carry. Vayne is like the late game hyper carry. She is one of the most or slash best ADs late game, hands down. a late game Vayne will almost kill anyone one-on-one unless it's like a super specific situation like Veigar. Like Veigar could just ult in one shot if he has enough stacks, and like, what does she do at that point? But Vayne, her damage is one of the highest, if not the highest late game, along with some other of the hyper carries. The only thing holding Vayne back is her tremendously bad early. Vayne is so bad early that it takes so long for you to recover from it that if you don't get to late game, you probably lose. If you do get to late game, you still might lose. But Vayne is just so good late, it's so hard to ignore her. And she's one of the champions where she's almost exclusively auto-attack reliant. Like, Kog'Maw is auto-attack reliant, but he has the E, he has the Q, he has the ult. But the auto-attack is the main part of his kit. Vayne, her whole kit except for the E is centered around the auto-attack. So she is like, by definition, one of the hardest, just by the book ADs there is. It's just she's so bad early. She scales like a fucking Titanic fucking ship though. One of the hardest, if not hardest, scaler in the entire game. Super hard to play, super hard to scale, but if you do get to her fantasy, my god, you melt people. Like, playing Vayne is super fun if you know you're gonna scale. Same thing with Kog, same thing with Aphelios, same thing with Jinx, sort of with Jhin. Samira a little bit, Kaisa kind of, but Vayne, my god. It's just, I don't know how much it offsets from like her lore and stuff. Her lore is alright, her thematic is good. I mean, visually she's really hot, so that bumps her up a little bit. But overall, she's definitely like an advanced player AD. You only play Vayne if you know what you're doing on AD. If you're not a good AD player, you do not play Vayne. Hands down, that is it. No argument, no discussion. You only play Vayne if you're good. And even then, the good players like still suck on Vayne. Vayne is so hard to pull off correctly. But when you do, it's good. So overall, I'd actually put her right below Ashe. Slightly above MF. Although I think MF is easier, I just like playing Vayne more. This goes into my personal preference at this point. I like Vayne more than MF, although I think MF is more consistent than Vayne. Ashe is just, I think the better of both worlds because she's way more consistent than both of them, and she's a great scaler. Everything above her is like my personal favorite. Like, I love Twitch. Everything above Ashe, I really love. Twitch, Kog, Aphelios, Samira, Kaisa, Jinx, Jhin. Like, obviously. But Vayne definitely holds a place in my heart. It's just, she's so hard to play right, which makes playing her a fucking chore and a hassle. And it makes you just feel bad for doing it. But that's what I'll say about Vayne. Next, we have Veigar. Pretty similar to the the Seraphine Swain situation. First of all, he's not an AD. He's an excellent scaler, yeah. But you could do the same things with him as support. Although you could make the argument he scales faster in AD, which in Veigar's case actually does matter. Like, I can actually see an argument for AD Veigar. And not AD as in he's building like physical, like, I mean, he's going mage, but he's filling the AD role. That's what I mean. But I can actually see an argument for it. I just think it's really hard to pull off, and I mean, you will do like near AD levels of damage late game with just your constant burst of WQ, and then the ult to really just say fuck you to one person. But I mean, I could see more of an argument for it than Seraphine, so honestly, I'm going to put it here. But because he's not an AD, he's going below Ezreal. Honestly, I'll put him above Ezreal. And Kalista. I can see it. I can see the argument. Like, I'd probably pick Akshan over him, but all these other people, I would be like, yeah, Veigar's on their level, if not better. So that's what I'd say about that. Xayah. Xayah's a really good AD. She just suffers from, like, she takes a little too long to scale. She's similar to Vayne. She's, like, the easier Vayne, in my opinion. She scales really well. She has a really good steroid, which is, like, insane to think about on paper. On paper, her autos literally gain 20% free damage. Like what? Hello? And it gives her move speed, attack speed. Like, it's insane. It's insane. like on paper she's really good. It's just she takes a bit to scale, and to play her right, she's similar to Kalista in that sense, and she has to rely on the E. But I feel like she's also a really, really, really good carry, but not good enough to be put in the great tier. Actually, I would say she's super patch dependent too, similar to Aphelios. It's just I really like Aphelios. I really like Xayah too. It's just the feathers kind of like weigh her down. Because if you get a good feather thing, like it's crazy. Like there's playmaking potential with the feathers too. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more I kind of realize where she should go. But it's really hard because she's really bad. Like she's not even really bad. It's just like she feels terrible to play because of her early and sort of mid game. It just takes too long. But she's good. Just hard. She really has a hard time carrying now too, which is like warping my view. But I mean, thematically, she's of a Stein. She is hot. She's a bird girl. She's a furry. So if you're into furries, I guess you'll like her. And I'm into many things. So I think she's like just honestly slightly below Cass. I mean, no, because I'll play her over Trist, but maybe not over MF. I'll put her here. I'll put her right here. I think this is fair. Because she's great. I think she's actually really good. It's just the only thing weighing her down. I don't really particularly think like the other things are negative, like the lore, the thematic, the look. They're definitely like not negative. They're not positive either. I don't really care for them. But it's just the gameplay kind of brings her like a little down. But she in the past would have been like way higher. It's just when you see how bad a champion can get, it kind of like humbles you to how they really are. So the final two here, Yasuo and Ziggles. So, oh boy, where to start with Yasuo? First of all, it's not a troll pick. I can see the argument for Yas AD. He has the wind wall, he has the dashes. I think it can actually work. But I do think it's silly and shouldn't be played realistically. Can it be played? Yes. Can it work? Yes. Should it be done? No. Is it stupid and dumb? No. Is it kind of troll? Borderline, but it works, I think, almost way better than any of these do. So he's going to be the top of the silly tier. No doubt about it. He's the top of the silly tier. Like, it could definitely work. It's just decently hard to pull off, and it's like, he's not an AD, bro. But I've seen it. Elijah likes doing it a lot. And it's like, it's good. I could see an argument for it, but it's just hard to do. And it's kind of troll. It's silly. It's literally just silly. And then finally we have Ziggs. Ziggs is, I think, aside from Cassio, the closest thing to being like okay as a AD in the bot lane. Even though he like, I mean, he wants to scale, yeah, but it's just he fulfills a different role. He fulfills the role of complementing the roaming support. He's really good in roaming support meta because he's one of the laners you could leave by himself, similar to Ezreal, and you know he's safe. But that comes in part to not only he has an escape and like decent peel for himself, but he also has amazing wave clear and pushing potential. Like he is honestly, I think, the closest thing to an AP AD that we have. He has good wave clear, scales well. Like I could honestly see the argument for him being in the bot lane. So I would actually put Ziggs right below Caitlyn. I could see it. It's a different style of gameplay. You really couldn't like, yeah, I'm not putting Garen in here, bro. With Yuumi as what? Garen, Yuumi bot lane? Oh my god. I don't know. Honestly, that could work, but I'll go over where that would go at the end after I like sort everything out, which is gonna come up really soon. But yeah, I would put Ziggs in the decent tier. I actually don't see it as troll anymore. Same thing to Veigar. Like Veigar support is not troll in my opinion. Veigar AD is kind of troll. I think overall I'm pretty happy where things are. If I ever see Heimer, Karthus, Senna, or Swain ADC, I'm upset. Like I'm actually just straight upset. Seraphine AD, I'm kind of upset. Like remember, it's going from like the first one in the list is like the best, and then everything after them is like a little worse, right? So Seraphine is the worst of the silly tier. Like I can see an argument for it, but you're really gonna have to sell me with some chocolates and some fine wine, even though I hate wine. So this is borderline almost stupid dumb, just because it works so good as a support. Like it doesn't make sense. Ezreal is Ezreal. I don't think I need to explain that anymore. Ezreal just doesn't scale well. Kalista is whatever. I mean, I already talked about all these, but yeah. Just looking it over, I think this list is pretty accurate. I might just switch around Aphelios and Kog'Maw, though. But, like, everything past MF, or maybe past Tristana, is, like, my core collection, kind of. Like, I don't play Ashe that much, although I think she's really good. Tristana's like the least of like my ADs that I'm really like vibing with. Sivir could go up or down depending on the patch though, but I think Sivir just because she's so boring and just doesn't really do anything is like good there. I mean, yeah, I think overall this is my tier list. I think this is the tier list of ADCs, how I pick them, how I enjoy them, how good I think they are, just everything combined. And the patches obviously kind of move them a little bit up and down, but I said which ones are really dependent on like patches. But yeah, this is, in terms of all things, my ADC tier list. Now, some things we should go over. Kalista is Vishal's champion. Vishal loves this champion. This is Vishal's champion. Second, if Garen and Yuumi was on this tier list, where would I put them? Well, Garen, first of all, his passive kind of becomes useless in any bot lane that has a brain. So his passive kind of doesn't matter. His Q makes it really hard to like do anything. If the enemy bot lane has CC, they could just peel Garen. I mean, Yuumi definitely helps. The Garen Yuumi lane is a scaling lane. The problem is it doesn't provide as much damage as a hard carry. It's just like, I don't think it matters though. Like, even though it doesn't provide as much raw hard carry damage as a carry bot lane, it provides something else, which is like overtime lasting damage, because Yuumi will keep the Garen alive and will give him damage. So it's not enough to be like a crit AD level, but it is enough to matter because you're outputting so much damage because you're living so much longer and in the front lines like no one else actually would be in the AD role. So I think it kind of balances itself out in terms of how much worth it brings. But in terms of where I would rate it, it's probably really hard to do against a good team too, because you're just going to get zoned out of farm, and the early game is honestly the worst part of the Garen Yuumi lane. So if you want Gary Yuumi bot lane, I would put that in the silly tier, right above Seraphine, under Ezreal. I'd rather play Ezreal than Garen Yuumi. But I can see the argument for why it's not stupid dumb, but it's definitely right below Ezreal, right above Seraphine. So that's where Garen Yuumi bot would be. But anyway, that's about it. That's my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh my god, it's a hot Asian. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is it. This is the tier list that will last forever, and this is the only tier list you need to refer to when looking at AD champions. How good their kits are, how good their lore is, how good their thematic is, how good they look, everything. Everything combined into one. This is the tier list you go to. I hope you enjoyed. I am out of here. I can't believe this took an hour. That's fucking crazy.